Olivia apartment building in Joplin goes up in flames overnight. We'll have the latest. Plus, Joplin Council decides on a city trash provider and why Missouri residents may have to do their own contact tracing if COVID cases continue to surge.
The four states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, former Carl Junction Bulldog is making waves in her college basketball debut. We'll have details. And the state of Minnesota rules that high school students laid off because of the pandemic can receive unemployment assistance. For something to talk about, we want to know whether or not you think they should be eligible. You can also participate in our Insta poll at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
Yeah, Tanya, as we look at the Skywatch storm tracker, we actually do see a dense fog advisory for two of our highlighted counties up in to the far north. It actually spans several states. Look at that thing stretching all that way. But for the most part, it's a clear start on the as far as clouds. No precip to worry about. Freeman Health System sky camera in Joplin, 31 degrees. No difference between the temperature and the wind chill, as we don't have to worry about any wind as it slowly creeps in from the northwest right there. 31 in Carthage, let's go 26 in Independence, and a pair of 31s in both Fort Scott and Nevada. The old bus stop forecast, clear as can be. We're going to have a sunshiny start, albeit a cold one. Now, wait until we get to the afternoon hours. This is going to be reminiscent of yesterday, as a matter of fact. Mid-50s, maybe just a skosh warmer than what we saw on Monday compared to our Tuesday, because our warming trend is going to be underway. Let me throw up this one and give you an idea of what we got here at the end of the work week, because we're going to have temperatures that are going to creep into the calm now. She's not going to want to cooperate with me. Calm now.
There we go.
We're going to have temperatures that are going to creep into the 60s here at the middle of the week. Next shot for rain, still looking at Friday into Saturday. And then we do have a cold front over the weekend. But then we're right back into the 50s by the time we get to Monday.
I'm looking forward to that warm-up, that's for sure.
Yeah, warm-up's going to be nice, but also, too, I want everybody with weekend plans to take a look at that Saturday and Sunday right there. That's kind of what we'll concentrate on, because the warm-up's going to be nice, but you know, like I said, it is going to pull the rug out from us there in between Friday and Saturday when that cold front hits.
Plan ahead, that's for sure. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, breaking overnight, fire engulfs the Olivia apartments in downtown Joplin. The unoccupied building was named one of Missouri's 2020 Places in Peril by the Missouri Alliance for Historic Preservation just weeks earlier. Call came in last night a little after 9:30 p.m. and fire appeared mostly contained in the top floor of the building. Joplin Fire Department brought in 2 ladder trucks and got the flames under control a little after midnight. Again, the building is unoccupied and officials say there were no injuries. The cause is still under investigation. This fire comes after the Joplin City Council passed a resolution back in October supporting a restoration plan for the building, which would have developed units for senior housing. Well, a tragic accident in northeast Missouri. A Moline Acres police sergeant was assisting with a traffic stop over the weekend when he was fatally hit by a fellow police officer also responding to the call. Christine Byers has the story.
I can't imagine how the officer must feel that was involved in this accident.
I've had discussions with him, and in his words, there are no words. I mean, he is at a loss.
At about 12:30 a.m. Saturday, Moline Acres Police Sergeant Herschel Turner responded to the scene of a traffic stop. A Bell Fountain Neighbors officer heard the same call and also headed to the scene. While on his way, that officer saw a silver sedan driving out of control and sped up.
The officer tried to identify the vehicle by getting a license plate, but wasn't able to do so.
Bell Fountain Neighbors Police Chief Jeremy Eiler says his officer saw the sedan crash into the scene of the traffic stop just beyond a crest in the road.
He had a decision to maneuver left or right around the accident.
Chief Eiler says his officer saw Sergeant Herschel Turner standing to the left of the wrecked police cars, so he swerved right toward a grassy area to avoid him. But Chief Eiler says Sergeant Turner ran the same way.
Unfortunately, the police car did strike Sergeant Turner. And after he was struck, the officer driving the police car got out, tried to render aid to him, and held them until the ambulance arrived.
Eiler said because of Turner's injuries, his officer didn't recognize him as the sergeant who always worked the same shift with him and as someone he considered a friend. Then he saw Sergeant Turner's picture on TV announcing he had died Sunday, leaving a wife and 3 daughters behind. The officer who struck him is now on mental health leave.
When he is trying to process what has happened, I know for a fact that he had told me that he became a police officer to help people, not to hurt people. And at the end of the day, he believes he is mentally broken right now because of it.
Missouri State Highway Patrol and the St. Louis County Prosecutor are investigating the crash. The Bellefontaine Neighbors Police Department are also conducting an internal investigation to determine if any policies were violated. A Wyandotte, Oklahoma woman is dead from a crash in Ottawa County yesterday morning. It happened a little before 8 a.m. northeast of Wyandotte on Highway 10. Investigators say 20-year-old Alexis Crawford was driving a car north behind a pickup that prepared to turn. When Crawford swerved to avoid the truck, she hit an SUV head-on. Crawford died at the scene. No one else was seriously hurt. Joplin City Council voted in last night's City Council meeting to deny an ordinance that would change the current trash service provider, from Republic Services to Waste Corporation of Missouri. Council was looking at 2 bids. WCA comes in with a lower trash service bid of $11.38 as opposed to $11.50 from Republic. Recycling services through Republic would be $10.97. WCA's would be half that, $5.25. But at last night's meeting, multiple citizens and Republic Service representatives expressed their concern to council members about the potential change in service providers. Many citizens noted the amount of negative customer service reviews from neighboring towns who use or have used WCA as their trash provider. After discussion, the majority of council members expressed their own concerns with taking away a service that the community seems to love, just for a lower price point from WCA. Residents like Mary Price, who spoke to council last night, is relieved by the outcome.
Every single councilman sat there and listened to the community. The community spoke, they listened, and they came to their decision based on who they work for, which is us.
City Council motion to give city staff direction to come back and work out an extension to Republic's current contract for 1 year with a rebid after more research is done. Missourians could be asked to do their own contact tracing if their local health departments become too overwhelmed. The state has put out new guidance encouraging local health departments to shift resources to case investigations if they become too overwhelmed with new cases. At that point, they would be able to ask positive cases to contact anyone they've had close contact with and ask them to quarantine. Both Newton and Jasper County say they're still doing all of their contact tracing, but it's become a challenge. It's 5:07.
Looking at sunny skies and temperatures up into the mid-50s. Sunrise here at 7:20 on the fresh air forecast. No reason to not find something to do and get some fresh air today, as it's delightful for early/mid-December. And look at this warming trend that we have on our hands. After 50s today, we're going to throw up 60s on Wednesday and Thursday.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, Labette County hits the floor in the T-Bird Classic, taking on Wichita Collegiate. We'll have highlights from both the boys and girls games, plus why high school students in Minnesota can now get unemployment assistance. And a look at the impact the pandemic is having on expecting mothers. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Former Carl Junction standout Katie Scott. She's in her first season at Division I Grand Canyon University. Now, she's only played 3 games, but she's already making a name for herself. Katie Scott's averaging a team high 20 points through the first 3 games and adding 6 rebounds a game. She's helped GCU go 3-0 to start the year. As an all-state player for Carl Junction, she pretty much picked up where she left off in her first year at Grand Canyon.
We've given her the green light from the get-go, and I think for her that's just kind of a comfort factor.
I have been given the green light, which a lot of freshmen don't always get that. So it's kind of been a confidence boost, and it has been an incentive to work harder because I want to prove that I can do everything she says I can.
She's really done a really good job of embracing that role of we need you to score, probably not like a typical freshman. Just pick up where you left off at Carl Junction, and she's done that really well.
Scott and Grand Canyon University back on the floor tomorrow night. They're going to host Northern Arizona. Missouri Southern's Carly Turnbull, your MIAA Women's Basketball Player of the Week. Turnbull helped the Lions go 2-0 last week, picked up wins over Northeastern State and Rogers State. And in those two games, Turnbull posted 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. She's averaging 15 points a game on the year. Lions 3-3 right now, back on the floor Thursday. That's when they will host Northwest Missouri State. Lebec County Grizzlies playing in the T-Bird Classic this week. That's at Circle High School in Towanda. Both the girls and boys, they were on the floor last night. We'll start on the boys' side. Grizz facing second-ranked Wichita Collegiate. Nice way to start things off. Alex Meister drives, contacts, three-point play. Back and forth for the first, and then Eli Heistand hits it at the buzzer. And then in the second quarter, Meister, boom, second three-pointer of the game. Getting close to halftime. Spartans double up Houston and open lane, nice play. Labette leads at 6 by the break, but there's a reason why Wichita Collegiate's ranked second as they come back and win this thing 51-41. Labco girls also matched up with Collegiate, starting the second quarter. Boom! Madison Brandon. We got one of the Brandon kids sinking the three. That sparks the Grizzlies. A nice steal from Madison Hayward. Up to Carson Stewart on the transition layup. Collegiate gets it back to 3, but Anna Dean with the bucket down low for the junior. And then right before the break, and the foul for Dean. Grizzlies pull away after the half, win this thing 52-36. Still to come on the KOAM Morning News, the latest on efforts to draw down troops in Afghanistan and the reaction abroad. And to check on our 7-day forecast when the KOAM Morning News returns. Rolling past 5:17 on this Tuesday morning, for our December 8th Almanac. Look at that record from 1991. Now, I'll tell you what, we got a warming trend on our hands that's headed our way, and we're going to cruise past our average high of 49 degrees here for the next several days. From the Freeman Hill System sky camera in Joplin, it's still a chilly one out there. 31 degrees is where we stand right now. Humidity at 85%, and so that is actually creating just a little patchy fog up to the far northeast. 31 in Carthage, let's go 26 in Independence, and 30 right now in Pittsburgh. Sunrise on the bus stop forecast, we'll call it 7:20 over Joplin. Clear and sunny start. That west wind going to shift just a little bit. This is where we're seeing the fog, really just about up here and then stretching all the way through Missouri up to the state line. Everything down south of that, visibility numbers very, very good right now, so we're going to buy that one. As far as what we're seeing on the contiguous 48, even the trough of the jet stream has pushed everything out to the Atlantic. Look at how abnormally dry this is. And we're talking about a December that doesn't even have a pop of rain springing up anywhere. You get a little bit there in the far Pacific Northwest. But that's about the extent of it right now, which is not necessarily a good thing. It can make for dangerously dry conditions. As far as what we have on Future Track, a whole lot of sunshine here for the next couple of days. And then our overnight lows, this is going to be very, very nice for Tuesday into Wednesday, not dropping down too far. And then by the time we get into Wednesday afternoon, vault that thing up all the way up into the 60s. We'll take that. As a matter of fact, we're going to have to roll 60s, not have to, we get to roll 60s for 2 consecutive days on Wednesday and into Thursday. Do want to pay attention, though, to what develops on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Number 1, rain comes in on Friday. Number 2, the cold front also arrives. You'll notice the huge gap in temperatures there, almost a 30-degree difference between where we'll top out on Thursday and where we'll end up on Sunday. Time now to turn our attention to the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll. Minnesota has ruled that high school students who are laid off because of the pandemic are now eligible for unemployment assistance. Now it's a decision to make up to $28 million available to thousands of teenagers across the state. Kate Raditz has the details.
My family never had a lot of money, so I learned the value of family and the value of dollar really pretty quickly when I was young.
Cole Stevens was in his senior year at Roosevelt High School in Minneapolis when COVID-19 arrived in Minnesota in March. He was close to graduating while working part-time at a coffee shop in Bloomington.
Right as I'm ready to do that, a global pandemic and the biggest and most historic recession that we've seen since the Great Depression comes along.
Stevens' hours were cut and then the coffee shop closed. At first, he did receive some unemployment assistance.
I got a letter from the Department of Economic Development and Employment saying that I needed to pay all of that money back to them. So even worse than being broke, I was now in debt.
But now a new court ruling says teenagers like Stevens can receive assistance under the Federal CARES Act. A small group of students pursued the lawsuit along with the Minneapolis-based Youth Prize. The nonprofit said the decision will be especially beneficial for young people who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color who are adversely affected by the impacts of the pandemic.
About a quarter of Black and Latino high school students who are working contribute at least 41% of their household's income.
Director of the Center for School Change, Joe Nathan, says the local ruling will have big implications for students around the country.
Under federal law, at least as interpreted by the Minnesota Court of Appeals, high school students all over the United States who have lost jobs due to COVID-19 would be due this money.
Our question for you: should high school students laid off during the pandemic be eligible for unemployment assistance? You can log on to the KOAM News Now Facebook page or let us know on our Insta poll, komnewsnow.com/vote. Health Watch next.
Topping Health Watch this morning, expectant mothers are feeling the strain of COVID-19. Both Mercy and Freeman hospitals have strict policies in place to help protect pregnant mothers and their newborns. KOAM's Kate Kelly shares the experience one mom went through giving birth at Freeman.
Being a mom is hard enough on its own, but factor in a pregnancy at the start of a pandemic and things get even more complicated.
We got to see our first ultrasound with the kids, but after that they no longer could come. And so only my husband could attend. And then right at the beginning of March, they stopped allowing him to come, which was a little scary because I was a high-risk pregnancy.
At her final appointment, Olson's doctor decided to induce. Things were happening fast.
They told me up front, they said, when you go into the hospital, you have to go with your husband or baby father, and you won't come out until you come out together.
Both Mercy and Freeman have strict rules about visitors. Only one person is permitted to stay during the delivery. This wasn't Olson's first pregnancy, but there were definitely some changes she picked up on right away. For starters, both she and her husband were tested for COVID before being allowed into the delivery room. Doctors say the coronavirus can be dangerous for moms.
1 to 3% of pregnant patients will be admitted to the ICU. Now, having said that, that sounds a little scary. I think, that means that greater than 90% of pregnant people will recover without hospitalization or, preterm delivery or anything like that.
Samantha made her debut on March 30th as COVID began to worsen. Olson gave updates to her family through social media and took all the advice doctors gave her, wearing a mask and staying home away from large gatherings.
I really advise that you take the advice and you run with it because they can't force you to do anything, but they're advising, and they are really smart about it because I have seen infants catch it, and you don't know how they're going to react.
In Joplin, Kate Kelly, KOAM News.
Others concerned about possibly transmitting COVID through breast milk. Doctors do still recommend breastfeeding, saying so many beneficial vitamins, nutrients, and even antibodies help boost a baby's immune system. Well, a new study in CMAJ confirms pneumonia, respiratory or kidney failure, and sepsis as the most common complications of COVID-19. Researchers hope the findings help doctors diagnose and treat the virus in the future. Healthcare workers in busy hospitals or noisy areas may benefit from a new digital stethoscope. The device, created at Johns Hopkins University, uses artificial intelligence and noise suppression technology to better identify lung abnormalities. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Our temperatures are going to push up into the mid-50s today. Sunshine Blue sky and a little west breeze, but just 5 to 10 miles per hour. Nothing blustery, and that actually really helps us out because there won't be a big difference between temperature and wind chill. And then look at Wednesday and Thursday, all the way up into the 60s. A nice little bump before the cold front hits right over the weekend. All the latest on the Skywatch weather app.
An Olivia apartment building in Joplin goes up in flames overnight. We'll have the latest. Plus, Joplin Council decides on a city trash provider and why Missouri residents may have to do their own contact tracing if COVID cases continue to surge.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, our morning talker today is about unemployment assistance for teens. We want to know whether or not you think high school students laid off during the pandemic should receive aid. And we also invite you to participate in this morning's Insta poll. Just go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
Good looking Skywatch storm tracker on our Tuesday morning. We do see some patchy fog on the far northeastern section of the 4 states, but our visibility numbers not bad at all. Freeman Health System sky camera in Joplin sits at 31 degrees. No difference between temperature and the wind chill, and that's because we don't have to fight the wind today. Humidity is picking up to 85%. That is why we do see some of that fog. Nothing freezing over or no reports of any slick spots as of yet. So that's a great thing right there. 29 in Miami, 31 in Nevada, and 33 in Chanute. For the bus stop forecast, we'll roll sunrise over Joplin at 7:20. Gets an absolutely gorgeous morning. Especially when it starts to warm up. Look how dry the contiguous 48 is right there. That is something else. I don't remember the last time I saw the 48 that just was sitting like that, and that's not necessarily a good thing for everybody out west because that's going to be critical fire weather for them. Here at home, we're going to warm up into the mid to high 50s and probably top out around, say 57 here this afternoon. I mean, we're already talking about 50 there by the lunch hour. And then we just keep on warming up as we'll see 60s on Wednesday and Thursday before the rain arrives on Friday and the cold front hits us on Saturday and Sunday.
But before that cold front, it's going to be beautiful.
Yes, no, it's going to be great for here for the next really 3 straight days.
Might as well enjoy it. All right, thanks, Michael. Well, breaking overnight, fire engulfs the Olivia Apartments in downtown Joplin. The unoccupied building was named one of Missouri's 2020 places in peril by the Missouri Alliance for Historic Preservation just weeks earlier. Very own Jesse Irwin is following this story this morning. He joins us live outside the Olivia Apartments with what we know about the fires so far. Jesse?
Good morning, Tanya. Yeah, we're outside here of the Olivia Apartments. We're late into the evening last night. Fire crews were working to put out the flames. Now, here's what we know. It was a little before 9:45, a little after 9:30 that fire crews got the call to head over here to the corner. It looks like we're here at Moffett, and the call came in, and fire appeared mostly contained in the top floor of the building. Now, Joplin Fire Department, they brought in 2 ladder trucks and got the flames under control a little bit after midnight. Again, the building is unoccupied, and officials say that there were no injuries. The cause is still under investigation. Now, interestingly enough, the fire comes after back in October, Joplin City Council voted, they passed a resolution that supported the restoration plan for the building, saying that it would develop units for senior housing. So, just part of the story as we continue to learn more here, but we still don't know the extent of the damage, Tanya. So as we continue to learn things, I'll make sure I put it down here and we'll get in touch with you guys and we'll have the latest for you.
All right, thanks, Jesse. I'm glad to hear that it was an unoccupied building, but still such a shame. The Olivia Apartments building is so beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. Thanks.
All right, thanks. We'll check back in with you later in the show. Well, a man accused in the shooting death of his own grandfather in Jasper County nearly 6 years ago will not contest the charge. 32-year-old Lee Yang took an Alford plea to a charge of second-degree murder for the death of 88-year-old Jai Yang. That means he concedes prosecutors have enough evidence for a conviction. Yang gets 20 years in prison. The murder happened at a rural Jasper County home in March of 2015. Witnesses say Yang said he must get the monsters out of the house and threatened relatives with a gun. They say he shot his grandfather once in the head. When authorities caught him running away from the home, a short time later, he had a pipe containing methamphetamine. Joplin City Council voted in last night's City Council meeting to deny an ordinance that would change the current trash service provider from Republic Services to Waste Corporation of Missouri. Council was looking at two bids. WCA comes in with a lower trash service bid of $11.38 opposed to $11.50 from Republic. Recycling services through Republic would be $10.97. WCA's would be half that at $5.25. But at last night's meeting, multiple citizens and Republic Service representatives expressed their concerns to council members about the potential change in service providers. Many citizens noticed the amount of negative customer service reviews from neighboring towns who use or who have used WCA as their trash provider. And after discussion, the majority of council members expressed their own concerns with taking away a service that the community seems to love just for a lower price point from WCA. City Council motioned to give city staff direction to come back and work out an extension to Republic's current contract for 1 year with a rebid after more research is done. Council last night passed an ordinance to annex a property near the 32nd Street Place Community Improvement District to include it in the district. Officials say the annexation was necessary in order to make street improvements listed in the redevelopment plan. They also say they're allowed to annex it because the property is blighted because of unsafe or unsanitary conditions. Joplin City Council approved a first reading on a proposal to give Osborne Parkway and Forest Park Cemeteries historic designations. That proposal now moves to a second and third reading. New state guidance in Missouri could mean some COVID patients will do their own contact tracing. High volume of COVID cases sweeping the nation is impacting county health departments, who are working to track down anyone who was exposed. New Missouri guidance would shift department efforts if contact tracing becomes overwhelming. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details.
Renee Bonds is one of around a dozen contact tracers at the Newton County Health Department. And right now, they're seeing a spike in cases, which is taking a toll.
It can get really stressful, especially, being a nurse. One of our goals is, we want to do our very best for our clients and our patients. And so when we feel like we're getting behind, we feel like we're not helping them like we want to.
Contact tracers in Jasper County are under similar stress.
We're usually here by 7:30 in the morning, and it's oftentimes 7 at night or later before we get out of here.
But new guidance from the state health department could change that. If local departments become too overwhelmed and their community has uncontrolled spread, they can shift their contact tracers to case investigations and have residents who have tested positive make those calls to their close contacts themselves, requesting that their contacts self-quarantine.
I don't see it as a huge difference. I think in many cases that's about as effective as if we actually issue a quarantine order.
Both counties are still doing their own contact tracing, but they're leaving the idea on the table.
If our numbers could continue to increase like we have seen over the past several weeks, we will probably get to a point that's where that's just reality.
The CARES money that is helping to support contact tracers, that goes away January 1st. And then there's another contract from the state. Those funds will last probably close to the summertime. We will then probably have to turn to the public and have their help once that happens, if there's no funding replacements.
In Jasper and Newton counties, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
For any health department that makes that shift, the state expects them to go back to contact tracing once the numbers in the areas are reduced. St. Louis and Buchanan counties have already made that shift. Well, usually Christmas decorations are centered around a tree or Santa Claus, but a Missouri homeowner has rolled out a theme inspired by the pandemic. Along with the twinkling lights, Matt Lezak has toilet paper rolls dangling from trees. Lighted ones, that is. A gigantic roll dominating the front lawn and a T-Rex donning a face mask. Why not? It took about a week to complete what he's calling 2020 Christmas, ready to wipe it away.
It's just to get people, get a little smile on your face, think kind of some of the silliness that's happened and, hopefully wipe this year away and get a better one next year.
That's a great idea. Daytime display as well. Homeowner says he hopes people will get a kick out of his decorations and says many people are stopping to take pictures. That's awesome. That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. We're going to tell you about a local contest called Lowdown from the Landlord. Plus, the Pope plans an historic visit to a war-torn country in the Middle East. First, it's 5:37.
Temperature is going to be in the high 50s today, a whole bunch of sunshine, a little west breeze, and then up into the 60s for Wednesday and Thursday before rain arrives on Friday and a cold front over the weekend. We'll be back right after this.
Topping World Watch, American troops are now preparing to withdraw from Afghanistan, the site of this country's longest war. Reporters got access to a checkpoint which has come under regular attack from the Taliban and talked to people who were in almost universal agreement. It is time for the United States to leave. Benjamin Hall and his team report from Kabul.
The road to Wardak from Kabul is a lawless one. It's where modern Afghanistan stops and the Taliban starts.
Just a couple of miles outside Kabul, in every direction, the Taliban are in control. Night after night, they launch attacks on police checkpoints and they take over districts like this. They are knocking on the door of Kabul, and many people feel it is only a matter of time until they move in.
Some people now say they would welcome the Taliban if it meant peace. Former President Hamid Karzai says the US drawdown will help to bring that.
Very strongly supportive of President Trump's decision to change course and to work for peace in Afghanistan and to let the Afghans talk among themselves and determine their own future.
But as they meet in Doha, the big question remains. Are the Taliban negotiating in good faith or just biding their time till the US pull out? The NATO Secretary General believes it is too soon.
We face a difficult dilemma. Whether to leave and risk that Afghanistan becomes once again a safe haven for international terrorists, or stay and risk a longer mission with renewed violence.
As the drawdown of US troops to 2,500 gets underway, the Taliban are getting bolder and have been slowly making moves into major cities.
The Taliban are not only knocking on the door of Kabul, they are already inside Kabul. Districts like this are taken over by the Taliban at night. When night falls, they come in, they put up roadblocks, they arrest and kill people who work for the government. The people who work and live here know that that is exactly what's going to happen when the US leave.
Well, the Taliban has not denounced al-Qaeda, and a UN report came out recently that suggested the two still have close relations and that there were no signs of that changing. The Vatican announces the Pope has plans to make a first-ever visit by a Pope to Iraq next year. The Pontiff will be visiting 5 places, including Baghdad, Erbil, and Mosul, sometime between March 5th and 8th. Spokesman for the Pope says the trip will take into consideration the evolution of the pandemic. The Louvre Museum in Paris gets creative in order to stay afloat during hard times. Louvre is organizing an auction selling up close and personal time with the Mona Lisa, along with a walk-along with the museum's rooftop with panoramic views of the Eiffel Tower and of Notre Dame. Bid for the Louvre is an online sale that offers people experiences auctioned off in aid of the museum's educational projects. The highest bidder, however, is the person who will get the chance to see Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece in person, an experience that usually only happens with crowds of people. Sounds like a romantic evening. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Michael for our Something to Talk About.
Thank you, Tanya. This morning on the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll in Minnesota, high school students laid off because of the pandemic now eligible for unemployment assistance. Our question for you is, should those high school students be eligible for said money? We'll start with Rick Norton, who says anyone who is working full-time and laid off should be able to draw it. But on the same pony, they must look for a new job. No one should be able to draw unemployment and sit on their bottoms. Merry Christmas, KOAM crew in Pittsburgh. Merry Christmas, Mr. Rick Norton. Michelle Pacini says, I agree with Rick. They were working, then absolutely yes. Good morning to you, Michelle. Becky Mangarelli says, yes, some of these kids might count on these jobs to help support their families or have to pay their own bills, such as car or cell phone. That feels like first world problems. And Guy's got a good point here. If you work in the hours and qualify, sure. What about farm kids? Started at an early age. I think that's an interesting question. Right now, 72% of you saying yes. high school students should be eligible for unemployment assistance. Of course, this is pandemic specific. I do want to point that out as far as our question goes. Be back with more KOAM Morning News. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Let us know what you think.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Fire engulfs the Olivia Apartments in downtown Joplin. Fire appeared mostly contained in the top floor of the building. Joplin Fire Department brought in 2 ladder trucks and got the flames under control a little after midnight. The building is unoccupied and officials say there were no injuries. This fire comes after the Joplin City Council passed a resolution back in October supporting a restoration plan for the building, which would have developed units for senior housing. Joplin City Council voted in last night's City Council meeting to deny an ordinance that would change the current trash service provider from Republic Services to Waste Corporation of Missouri. Many citizens noticed the amount of negative customer service reviews from neighboring towns who use or have used WCA as their trash provider. Council voted 7-2 to deny the ordinance and is now looking into extending Republic's contract for another year. Missourians could be asked to do their own contact tracing if their local health departments become too overwhelmed. The state has put out new guidance encouraging local health departments to shift resources to case investigations if they become too overwhelmed with new cases. At that point, they would be able to ask positive cases to contact anyone they've had close contact with and ask them to quarantine. The coronavirus is spreading out of control in much of the U.S., but Dr. Anthony Fauci says an even bigger surge may be coming. Dr. Fauci is warning of increased risk around Christmas and New Year's Day, when more people are likely to be traveling and gathering indoors. The UK is rolling out a nationwide coronavirus immunization campaign today. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Whole bunch of sunshine and up into the mid to high 50s later on today. Early morning patchy fog in the far northeast and a warming trend as we head toward the middle of the week. We'll be right back after this. Back to the KOAM Morning News, and I tell you what, with the year that 2020 has been and the amount of things that people have been through, a lot of people asking about whether it be rent, mortgages, anything like that. Well, there's an interesting 4-state contest that's going on, and it's called Lowdown for the Landlord. And the person that put this together is a 4-state veteran. His name is Eric DeCommon, and when I say 4-state veteran, he actually is a military veteran, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But Eric, number one, thank you for joining us. Lowdown from the Landlord. How did this come to fruition? Like, how did you put this together?
Hey, thanks for having me on here, Michael. I really appreciate it. I think like a lot of people, I was starting to get discouraged about what I was seeing on the news, and I just wanted to do something that was fun and that would give back. Rather than just running ads that were pointless, I wanted to give the community an opportunity to contribute and just have some fun. So I put together this competition where I'm soliciting right now videos from the community with any kind of skits or acts that are humorous, any way related to real estate. I'd love to post them on the Do Common Properties Facebook and then reward the charity of choice by the winners with a cash prize.
And so when you talk about a skit or anything like that, this is very curious because I don't want to say you're making a mockery because you're contributing back, but it's almost like, hey, we can have fun with the environment that we're in. Is that what you're kind of inviting, creativeness?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It has been a difficult year, and you know, not to make light of situations, fortunately, we've had tenants that have struggled financially in 2020, like many people have. But I'm very proud that Do Common Properties, every single one of our tenants in Joplin has been able to stay in their home. We've been able to work out something where they've been able to make their rent on terms that, you know, were acceptable to them. And so I'm not trying to undermine the difficulties that anyone has faced in 2020. But, you know, there's always some humor behind even hard truths. And sometimes some of the hardest things are some of the things that we need to just be able to laugh about. And so, you know, I want gloves off, no holds barred skits, just things that we can just sit back and we can all laugh together about.
Eric, I greatly appreciate your time, and also too, always like to say thank you for your service. And once again, You go to the Common Facebook page, log on, submit your videos, and Eric wants funny. And remember, anything that you come up with that's good goes to a charity of your choice. Hey, you young kids, take advantage of this. Eric, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much, Michael. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this. Fresh air forecast looking absolutely delightful on this Tuesday morning. Is a whole lot of sunshine. It's going to put us up in the mid to high 50s. Just a little west breeze, nothing to concern ourselves with. No difference between the temperature and the wind chill as we progress through Tuesday. And then look at Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to make it up into the 60s. That's a good 19, 20 degrees above where we'd normally be for that time of December. And then, cold front comes after the rain on Friday. Going to be a chilly weekend. And of course, you can always find the latest
from
on the
KOAM
Skywatch
TV
weather app.
and your Midwest Ford dealers.
What we're doing is people that have been hurt on the job and they're going through a situation where they're trying to heal.
An Olivia apartment building in Joplin goes up in flames overnight. We'll have the latest. Plus, Joplin Council decides on a city trash provider and why Missouri residents may have to do their own contact tracing if COVID cases continue to surge.
The 4 states most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, we'll get some tips on how you can get your hands on a video game console ahead of Christmas. And Minnesota rules high schools can receive unemployment assistance if they were laid off because of the pandemic. For something to talk about, we want to know whether or not you think these kids should be eligible. You can also vote in our Insta poll at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
Live look outside of Television City. Look down to the southeast. You get a good shot of Venus up in the sky. Got some twinkling lights there out in the horizon. See if we can find out what that is all about. From the Skywatch Storm Tracker, a little patchy fog up in the northeast. Cloud cover is minimal, to say the least. Almost hanging a little bit in the same position as it was yesterday. Off to a cool start, 32 degrees right at the freezing point for the Freeman Health System sky camera in Joplin. Let's go 31 in Pittsburgh, 32 in Carthage, and 31 in Parsons. Sunrise at 7:20 on the old bus stop forecast. No worries for the kiddos, as it is a very dry one throughout the contiguous 48. And the weather trend has us in the 4 states creeping up into the high 50s later on this afternoon. Nice thing is, as we continue to warm up, it's going to be a almost warm December here in the middle of the week. And then after Friday's rain comes a cold front. Look at that difference between what we see on Wednesday and what we have on Sunday. About a 30-degree difference.
Big difference there. I'm looking forward to the warm up. I'm going to focus on that. You can worry about the
Wednesday and
cool
Thursday.
down.
Today's going to be great too. This afternoon's going to be wonderful.
Yes.
And Wednesday and Thursday, man, 60 degrees in December.
Almost like Thanksgiving Day.
We'll get a little close. We won't break it, but we'll get a little close to a record there tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Michael. Well, breaking news overnight, fire engulfs the Olivia Apartments in downtown Joplin. The unoccupied building was named one of Missouri's 2020 places in peril by the Missouri Alliance for Historic Preservation just weeks earlier. Now, our own Jesse Irwin is following the story this morning. He joins us live outside the Olivia Apartments with what we know about the fire so far. Jesse?
Well, Tanya, you can still actually smell some of the smoke here, and you can see some of the steam coming off here and hear some of the water dripping because, I mean, it happened that recently. Crews were here late into the evening last night. The call came in at around 9:30, 9:45 last night, and it took about 2 hours for crews to use 2 different ladder trucks. Joplin Fire had to really take this thing down, and fortunately, you know, they were able to get everything taken care of. There were no injuries because, again, like you said, Tanya, you know, it's an unoccupied building. But actually, in October, the Joplin City Council passed a resolution that would have turned this into some senior housing. So, you know, as we continue to sort of assess the situation, you know, we're fortunate no one was injured. But last night, you know, our station went live on Facebook, and you could, I mean, really see. As you're probably seeing right now, I mean, some of those flames. It's really it was quite a sight to see. But fortunately, no one was hurt in the process.
Well, and if folks aren't familiar with where the Olivia apartments are, our video showed like a sign of the historic Murfreesburg location there as well.
Right.
If you want to describe like where exactly you are, Jesse.
Yeah. So we're right here in downtown Joplin. We're at the corner of 4th in South Moffett. So I mean, literally a block or two away from right in the heart of downtown Joplin. So I mean, if you were even close to the area last night, you would have seen it, and you probably would have smelled it too.
All right, thank you so much for that report, Jesse. It's such a sad thing. A beautiful building there. All right, thanks.
Yeah, it really is. Thanks,
Joplin police have released surveillance images from a weekend bank robbery. They say this man dressed in black went into the Southwest Missouri Bank at 2530 North Rangeline Road around noon on Saturday. They say he demanded money from employees and then got away running west. Joplin City Council voted last night to deny the passing of an ordinance that would change the city's current trash service provider. The ordinance brought on a lot of debate between citizens and city council members. KOAM's Caitlin Shive has more.
City Council's Monday night meeting had a jam-packed agenda, but the item that got the most attention was an ordinance to change trash service providers from the current provider, Republic Services, to Waste Corporation of America.
I always look forward to those nights where 9 independent decision makers are approaching a problem from 9 independent points of view, voting our conscience after doing our homework, and then the majority will win.
WCA came in with the lower trash service bid of $11.38 as opposed to $11.50 from Republic. With recycling services from Republic being offered at $10.97, WCA's would be half that at $5.25. For Mayor Ryan Stanley, the price standpoint alone was enough to give the bid to WCA until many community members came forward with their concerns.
I knew that there would be a lot of people coming out, so I was not surprised to see the level of community involvement in this decision.
Multiple community members and representatives from Republic Trash Service spoke in front of council, expressing their concerns with the potential change. Mary Price was one of them, stating that the provider should be chosen based on quality of service, not price, adding that WCA has many negative customer service reviews.
I think that the city council members really listened, and I think it touched the hearts.
Many of the community members also stated they would be fine with a price increase just to be able to have the type of customer service that Republic provides, which led to a discussion among council members, with the majority voting to deny the change in providers and motioning to extend Republic's contract.
The fact that we're going to extend, if we can, the contract with Republic for a year, it gives everybody the opportunity to go back to the table.
I also am not real pleased with where we are on our recycling costs, and so I would hope that we can find better pricing to go along with that better service.
In Joplin, Caitlin Shive, KOAM News.
Council voted 7-2 to deny the ordinance and is now looking into extending Republic's contract for another year with a rebid for providers later on. Another proposal before the council would expand the Sunshine Lamp Historic District to include parts of the 800 and 900 blocks of Main Street. The city would encourage property owners to improve their facades by paying half the cost, up to $37,500. Council passed that proposal on first reading. It will now go to a second and third reading. Missouri health departments have the option of telling residents who test positive for COVID-19 to do their own contact tracing. The state has put out new guidance encouraging local health departments to shift resources to case investigations if they become too overwhelmed with new cases. At that point, they would be able to ask positive cases to contact anyone they've had close contact with and ask them to quarantine. Both Newton and Jasper County say they're still doing all of their contact tracing, but they're keeping the option on the table.
The CARES money that is helping to support contact tracers, that goes away January 1st. And then there's another contract from the state. Those funds will last probably close to the summertime. We will then probably have to turn to the public and have their help once that happens, if there's no funding replacements.
For any health department that makes that shift, the state expects them to go back to contact tracing once the numbers in the area are reduced. 6:07.
We're going to have temperatures up into the mid 50s later on today. Even see some high 50s. Don't think we'll quite get to 60 degrees, but it'll be a delightful December day with a whole bunch of sunshine, just a little west breeze, and the nice thing about it, it's not having any effect on our temperature and our wind chill. Tanya?
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, remembering a music icon.
40 years ago, the world lost a musical legend and a cultural icon, John Lennon. I'm Michael George with a look back on that day and at Lennon's life and legacy.
Plus, why dentists are seeing a decline in their patients' oral health, and what you need to know about buying video game consoles ahead of Christmas. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. Bob Dylan sells his entire catalog of songs to Universal Music. Price was not disclosed, but it is estimated at more than $300 million. The agreement encompasses more than 600 songs over 60 years and includes classics like Blowin' in the Wind, The Times They Are Changin', and Like a Rolling Stone. Throughout his career, the 79-year-old legendary musician has maintained control over nearly all of his songwriting copyrights. Landmark deal is reported to be the largest acquisition ever of a single act's publishing rights. Well, today marks 40 years since one of the greatest tragedies to hit the music world, the death of John Lennon. Michael George looks back at that day and the legacy Lennon leaves behind.
Fans of John Lennon came together at the memorial in Central Park known as Strawberry Fields.
One of the greatest artists, philosophers, humanitarians, and inspirations.
Some of these fans were also right here on that tragic night 40 years ago when the Beatles legend was gunned down outside his apartment at the age of 40.
Came here at night with a big crowd of people and sang songs and cried. Very sad day I'll never forget.
I was, driving along a road and a song came on and it just hit me. And the tears started flowing and I started crying.
Charles Rosenay is a Beatles expert who published a magazine about the band. He says Lennon was one of the most influential musicians of all time, but his death transcended music.
What we lost that night was not the killing of one rock star. What we lost is somebody who till today would have probably given us great insight. He spoke the truth. He brought to light obvious things that, the world and politicians should have seen.
And even 40 years later,
living for today,
John Lennon's legacy lives on. Fans like Mike Egan say his music and his message of peace are timeless.
Just a legend, taken too soon, and it's just really amazing that we have this place to keep remembering him by.
You may say I'm a dreamer,
still inspiring millions a generation after he left us. In New York, Michael George, CBS News.
Hope someday.
Well, the man convicted of killing John Lennon, Mark David Chapman, remains behind bars in an upstate New York prison. Michael?
Mark David Chapman from Fort Worth, Texas. And, then we can get into Holden Caulfield, and then we can get into the whole nine. Long story, isn't it?
Good story. Well, not a good story,
No,
but
it's not a good story.
interesting story. Put it that way.
It's not a good story. And then you end up with your middle name being Holden. Yeah, it's crazy.
Huh.
Yeah. You didn't think about that one, did you?
Wow.
All right, KOAM News Now Facebook page, Morning Insta poll asking about high school students eligible for unemployment assistance during the pandemic. Right now, 68% of you say yes, they should be. We'll get to some of your Facebook comments. Also, too, you can log on to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote and let us know what you think. We'll be right back after this.
In Money Watch this morning, a new survey shows economists are hopeful for 2021. The National Association for Business Economics found 73% of forecasters believe the economy will return to its pre-pandemic level late next year. Since the coronavirus took hold, experts have said only when a vaccine is readily available and consumers feel safe will the economy fully bounce back. Well, across the world, holiday shopping is in full swing as parents track down all sorts of presents for their kids. And of course, one category of toys always seems to be at the top of many wish lists. We're talking video games. And in true 2020 chaotic fashion, two of the three main gaming companies, Sony and Microsoft, released their latest console within the last month. Sony with the PlayStation 5 and Microsoft with the Xbox Series X. It's an effort to dethrone the Nintendo Switch, which has been the top-selling device in the U.S. every month for the past 2 years. But with these two companies selling their consoles faster than they can make them, it's been close to impossible to track one down. Store managers and employees say that's the reason some parents are taking a different approach for right now, even though some version of this plays out every year.
Well, same as every Christmas. I think the hottest things are usually video game consoles, especially this year. We're seeing the PS5 release, the Xbox Series X release, so those have been the hot releases for the year. But as scarce as they are, people have chosen a lot of the alternatives. The previous generation, the Xbox One, the Switch, the PlayStation 4, we're old school retro Nintendo, so it's it's definitely been video game consoles.
Now, if you're one of the parents sitting at home still trying to figure out how to land one of the latest consoles, here's the best advice I've heard so far. Keep an eye on stock tracker sites like Tom's Guide and keep those up to date as much as they can. There you go. Well, because of the pandemic, many kids will not get a chance to sit on Santa's lap to tell him what they want for Christmas. So we're giving 4-state kids the chance to send those lists directly to Santa himself. With the help of mom or dad, kids can fill out a list on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com/North Pole. And all next week during the 6 o'clock hour of the KOAM Morning News, the big man in red will read the list of the good little boys and girls in the 4 states. And soon we'll also have some coloring pages for kids to print out at home. So let's check back in with Michael. A look at the forecast.
Really looking forward to Notes to the North Pole. That is going to be an awesome segment that we're about to embark upon, and trust me, you're going to want your kids involved. I think they're going to love it as well. You may even get them out of bed earlier if they know that letter's going to be read. How about that for a little impetus for them? Gosh darn it. It's back-to-back. Tanya wasn't here yesterday when Dave Pitts was making fun of my hair. I'm working on it, Dave, I promise. Hey, good shot of Venus right there. Live look from the mothership just outside. Our weather almanac on this December 8th is going to have a high of 73 set back in 1991. And while we're not going to break any records, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a nice little middle of the week here as we begin to warm up into the 50s and 60s for the next couple of days. Freeman Health System Sky Camera, crazy to think we sit right at the freezing point. Right now in Joplin, 31 in Parsons, 32 in Monette as well. Sunrise at 7:20 on the bus stop forecast. Now, by the end of the day, we're talking about topping out in the mid-50s. Absolutely no worries as far as what we have going this week, as we're going to have 68 and 67 here. Like I said, we're not going to break any records, but for the middle of December, that's hard to beat right there. Especially when you look at the cold front that's coming in. Look at that 30-degree difference that we see in between Sunday and the middle of the week. So we'll go rain and the cold front. So get out and enjoy the next 3 days because they are going to be absolutely delightful. Be back with more KOAM Morning News right after this.
Topping Health Watch this morning, concerns over COVID-19 have reduced routine checkups at dental offices across the U.S., with patients now going back into the dental chair. Now, some dentists are seeing new problems in their patients. Mandy Gaither has more.
If you're feeling stress over the pandemic, it's likely your mouth is too. Atlanta dentist Dr. Travis Watson says his patients are having some pandemic-related dental problems.
There's a lot of close links to dental problems for people who take antidepressants. It can just have lots of negative effects on your mouth. It actually decreases saliva flow, so we see lots of opportunistic cavities in patients who are on antidepressants. We've also seen an increasing amount of patients who've presented with headaches and jaw aches that are directly related to grinding or clenching of the teeth, which we know has a strong correlation with emotional stress.
If you're concerned about going back to your dentist, ask questions beforehand.
What safeguards do they have on entry into the office? For example, is there a questionnaire, and are they very careful about admitting patients that have any symptoms? And also, does the office have the proper PPEs?
Dr. Watson says oral health affects overall health and shouldn't be ignored.
The evidence shows that gum disease has a direct correlation with heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and many other, medical, problems.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
CDC says people at higher risk for many chronic diseases are similar to those at higher risk for developing oral diseases. Common risk factors include stress, poor diet, alcohol and tobacco use, substance abuse, and poverty. Many of these factors have been heightened during the pandemic. Expecting mothers are feeling the strain of COVID-19. Both Mercy and Freeman hospitals have strict policies in place to help protect pregnant mothers and their newborns. And currently, mothers are only allowed to have one visitor with them during delivery. Doctors are doing everything they can to protect pregnant women from getting COVID-19, since it can be quite serious for them.
If a pregnant person gets sick with it, they're more likely to wind up with a more severe infection, wind up in the ICU, 1 to 3%, still very low, and maybe, require mechanical ventilation, be intubated.
For mothers concerned about possibly transmitting COVID through breast milk, doctors do still recommend breastfeeding, saying so many beneficial vitamins, nutrients, and even antibodies help boost a baby's immune system. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Just got off the phone with our own Jesse Irwin. Says the apartment complex still smoldering as we speak right now. We'll have live updates with him as we continue through the show. Weather-wise, whole bunch of sunshine and high 50s later on today, warming up into the 60s by the middle of the week before the cold front is on the backside of the rain just in time for the weekend. We'll be right back after this.
An Olivia apartment building in Joplin goes up in flames overnight. We'll have the latest. Plus, Joplin Council decides on a city trash provider and why Missouri residents may have to do their own contact tracing if COVID cases continue to surge.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, the latest on stimulus negotiations in Congress and something to talk about on the KOAM News Now Facebook page. We're asking whether or not you think high school students should be eligible for unemployment assistance. You can also vote in our Insta poll at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
Are you kidding me? You couldn't remember the name of Vince Vaughn?
Yes, it was blanking on me. And yes, what you ask if it was involved in these movies, anything with him in it, is yes. I love Vince Vaughn. I watched 4 Christmases.
Folks, I am breaking news. I am breaking news on the bottom line this morning. I want this reported exclusively from the Skywatch Weather Center that Tanya has a thing for Vince Vaughn.
I do. He's tall.
Who are the other ones that when we used to do celebrity birthdays?
I'm not telling you.
I'll find that out.
Think of him
Anyway,
yourself.
I'm breaking this from the Skywatch Weather Center. If there's a movie with Vince Vaughn, evidently Tanya is on
Is he in any other Christmas movies? Because that's what I'm watching right now, and I've already seen 4 Christmases and Fred Claus. If he's in any other ones, please let me know so I can.
He is not in Die Hard.
He's not in Die Hard. Yes. I'm all about the Christmas movies.
Okay,
right now.
I need to do this and let you calm down a little bit. Freeman Health Sky Camera in Joplin, 32 degrees. Folks at Freeman, I apologize. I had to break that news right there. That was an interesting one. No, I did not see it. I've known this woman a long time. I did not see that one coming. 32 in Carthage, 32 in Neodesha, and 27 in Miami. Now, the wind is pretty negligible, so there's not a big difference between our temperature and what it feels like. Slow little warm up. We'll be approaching 40 degrees by 9 a.m. Look at how dry the contiguous 48 is. That's not a good thing because we've got critical fire weather now out to the west. Not here in the 4 states. We don't have any red flag warnings or high wind advisories, anything like that. As we're going to be nice, calm, and mild for today and make it up into the high 50s. And then we just progress up on the thermometer into the 60s on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday brings us rain and also brings us a cold front that's going to have a big drop from the middle of the week to the weekend, about a 30-degree difference there from Sunday to Wednesday.
I just read a review that said that Four Christmases is one of the 10 worst Christmas movies ever made. Dang it.
Doesn't matter to you, it's got Vince Vaughn in it, doesn't it?
And I'm sorry, I disagree, Reese Witherspoon. I would have done it.
Do you have a favorite Vince Vaughn movie? Do you want to go Swingers? Do you want to go Wedding Crashers? Do you want to go The Breakup? Do you want to go
Of the three you've mentioned?
Do you want to go Four Christmases?
No. No.
The Intern?
Look, he's a Vince Vaughn fan. You can tell. I don't know. I'll get
I
back
love
to you
Vince
on
Vaughn.
that. I'll
I
get
think
back
he's
to you on
great.
that. He was really good in Wedding Crashers.
I
That was fun.
I just don't.
That gave me a whole new insight on
Like,
that approach of wedding. Whole new insight. We have breaking news to report on, so let's get to
I just broke news.
Breaking news besides Vince Vaughn. There's something else that's hot out there overnight. Breaking overnight, fire engulfs the Olivia Apartments in downtown Joplin. The unoccupied building was named one of Missouri's 2020 places in peril by the Missouri Alliance for Historic Preservation just weeks earlier. And our own Jesse Irwin is following the story this morning. He joins us live outside the Olivia Apartments with what we know about the fire so far. Jesse?
And Tanya, here's what we know so far. Last night about 9:45, fire department got a call saying that there was a fire here at the corner of 4th and Muffet, and they came down here and spent several hours trying to battle this fire. The majority of the fire was actually on the roof of the building, but so we don't know the full extent of the damage so far. But what we do know, pardon me, it's actually somewhat still smoky over here. Probably what's causing it, but frankly, we do know that the building was not occupied. So there were no injuries, but I know authorities are still assessing the extent of the damage. But you can hear, the water is still dripping out of the building. Probably will be for some time today and over the next couple days. But yeah, this is an 114-year-old building, Tanya. So it's a historic building here in Joplin, and as we continue to learn more, we'll let you know. But for right now, we're just sort of watching the recovery process begin.
I know, it's quite a process, that's for sure. All right, thank you so much, Jesse. Well, Joplin City Council voted in last night's City Council meeting to deny an ordinance that would change the current trash service provider from Republic Services to Waste Corporation of Missouri. The council was looking at 2 bids. WCA comes in with the lower trash service bid of $11.38. as opposed to $11.50 from Republic. Now, recycling services through Republic would be $10.97. WCA's would be half of that at $5.25. But at last night's meeting, multiple citizens and Republic Service representatives expressed their concern to council members about the potential change in service providers. Many citizens noticed the amount of negative customer service reviews from neighboring towns who use or who have used WCA as their trash provider. After discussion, the majority of council members expressed their own concerns with taking away a service the community seems to love just for a lower price point from WCA. City Council motion to give city staff direction to come back and work out an extension to Republic's current contract for 1 year with a rebid after more research is done. Missourians could be asked to do their own contact tracing if their local health departments become too overwhelmed. The state has put out new guidance encouraging local health departments to shift resources to case investigations if they become too overwhelmed with new cases. At that point, they would be able to ask positive cases to contact anyone they've had close contact with and ask them to quarantine. Both Newton and Jasper County say they're still doing all of their contact tracing, but it's become a challenge.
We've recently had cases that were associated with weddings or school events or things of that nature, and so you end up with more contacts in situations like that than you would just someone who's primarily had household contacts. So in those situations, it does become a little more time-consuming.
For any health department that makes that shift, the state expects them to go back to contact tracing once the numbers in the area are reduced. St. Louis and Buchanan counties have already made that shift. With the holidays in full swing, law enforcement say they're starting to see an increase in burglaries. Johnny Resendez shares tips on how to keep your family and property safe this holiday season.
The holidays are usually a good time to go out and buy something that you could give to a loved one. But for others, unfortunately, it is a great time to be stealing.
Always in the holiday seasons, we're going to see our, I don't know necessarily a spike. You know, they seem to measure out about the same every holiday season.
Last year, Oklahoma was ranked third in the country in burglaries during the holiday season. Even though car burglaries are the most common, TPD says packages are the target this year given the boost of online sales due to COVID-19. Tulsa police officer Danny Bean says the best way to avoid being a burglary victim is to lock your car and house doors, along with hiding anything that might be valuable. He also says, if possible, invest in security technology like door cameras and always keep track of an online order's delivery time to avoid it being taken by porch pirates.
I know it's hard. It's a lot easier said than done. I understand. Try to be home maybe when the delivery is going to be there.
Tulsa resident Rachel Mosley knows firsthand how it feels to be burglarized by porch pirates. Last week, her doorbell camera caught a man stealing packages that she left overnight. She says the most painful thing about it isn't the money she lost, but that those packages were for her kids.
I'm really sad for the people that do that because they clearly don't value other people and don't respect other people. I think if it had been something that I had just bought for myself, I probably wouldn't have taken it so hard.
Now, if you do manage to get your items to your home safely, TPD always suggests to make sure that you write down the serial number so that way you have a better chance of retrieving those items should they be burglarized.
And that's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News, the next stage of the pandemic.
The UK has started administering a coronavirus vaccine today, while here in the U.S., approval could be just days away. I'm Deborah Alfrone in Washington with the latest on that and a potential coronavirus relief package.
Plus, should high school students laid off during the pandemic be eligible for unemployment assistance? We let you weigh in our Something to Talk About, but first, it's 6:37.
Right at, if not below the freezing mark right now, but eventually up into the high 50s with plenty of sunshine today. We'll be back with Nation Watch next.
Topping Nation Watch this morning, Joe Biden continues to fill out his cabinet. CBS News has learned that the president-elect intends to nominate Lloyd Austin as his Secretary of Defense. Austin is a former four-star Army general who retired in 2016. If confirmed, the 67-year-old will become the first African-American to lead the Pentagon. With 800,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine becoming the first Western country to start such a program, 90-year-old patient Margaret Keenan was the first patient yesterday. Now, here in the U.S., the vaccine rollout could start later this week. Deborah Alfrone is in Washington with the latest.
They're calling it V-Day in the United Kingdom.
It's the beginning of the end of this pandemic.
Today, the country kicks off a mass coronavirus immunization program.
Top of that priority list includes people in care homes as well as the over 80s.
87-year-old Dr. Harry Shukla is one of the first to get the vaccine.
A big relief because I think it's not an ordinary crisis.
Here in the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration may authorize the Pfizer vaccine this week. Today, President Trump hosts a White House summit to promote the rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines.
And it's very transparent because the data upon which they base that decision will ultimately become totally public.
A report from the New York Times says the Trump administration passed up the opportunity to buy more doses of the Pfizer vaccine beyond an initial 100 million. The decision could delay the delivery of a second batch until June. But the administration says the report is false and points to 5 other candidates, including Moderna's, which the FDA could authorize later this month.
Operation Warp Speed seems poised to deliver vaccines on an historic, almost
miraculous timetable.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers continue negotiating a coronavirus relief package.
It's going to take a sense of urgency now, Mr. Leader.
The $908 billion bill is held up on aid to state and local governments and business liability protections. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
Today, the United Kingdom begins vaccinating the country. Congress is expected to pass a one-week extension to fund the government past Saturday. The hope is to attach a coronavirus relief package onto a larger bill that funds the government. That's a look at today's top national stories. We'll be right back. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero. Jack Andrus served in the United States Army from 1944 to 1946. He fought in Europe during World War II. His hometown, Southwest City, Missouri. We are proud to salute Jack Andrus, our four-state hero.
Jada Malvo celebrating a birthday. Great smile right there. And a happy birthday, Miss Jada in Fort Scott.
And Miss Caitlin Cook is now a teenager, 13 years old in Lamar. Happy birthday, Caitlin.
Lamar Tiger Pride right there. Melissa Cuffler, she is celebrating the big 5-0. That's cool right there, Melissa. I love that picture. She's celebrating in Parsons.
All right, that is a good picture. Also turning the big 5-0 in Columbus, Mick Tedlock. Happy birthday, Mick.
And Pauline Trough, a happy birthday to Pauline. Hey! I haven't seen Pauline forever. You're a wonderful woman. Happy birthday, Pauline. She's in Pittsburgh, by the way. Lisa Barker, out of Medical Lodges. Everybody practice your social distancing right there. Say happy birthday to Lisa. Mary Hess, a happy birthday in Chatopa. And Mark Wilson, who happens to be the brother of our own traffic manager, Jill Nelson. Well, Mark's celebrating the big 6'4". A happy birthday to Mark. Long distance shout out. My boys in Fort Worth. Yeah. It's like going back home for me now.
Aw. All right, we've got Nate Hamblin celebrating.
Wait. Hey, Will, did we not get a picture of Nate?
Apparently not. We don't have his age either. All I know is he's young at heart.
You know what? Trust me. Hey, here's the deal, dude. Tomorrow I'm throwing that picture up there. And you can blame Hattie and Ashley for sending it in. I'm going to get that picture up there. Anyway, I love that dude. We're going to come back. We're going to get Nate tomorrow. Just trust me on that one. Because I want to laugh at the picture. It's good. Judy Law, a happy birthday to Judy. Celebrating in Miami. So happy birthday and happy anniversary to all on this December 8th. That's where you send your pictures into. Now, here's Tanya Bach with a very important birthday announcement.
That's right. You can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club. All you have to do is go to our website and sign up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com. Sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
I'm going to get you, Nate. Trust me. That picture going to be on there. All right, live look outside of Television City. Gorgeous start to our Tuesday morning. There's a shot of Venus up there. If you look to the south-southeast, you're going to see it shining brightly, even with the sun coming over the horizon. As we take a look at our daily almanac on this December 7th, where normally we'd top out at 49 degrees, but we're going to cruise past that by the time we get into the afternoon hours. Yet at the same point in time, as we stand at 10 minutes till the top of the hour from the Freeman Health System Sky Camera, still right at the freezing point in Joplin, 31 in Pittsburgh, 30 in Neosho, and 32 in Chanute. Officially, sunrise on the bus stop forecast over Joplin will be at 7:20, according to our good friends of the National Weather Service. A clear and sunny start with a little westerly breeze and up close to 40 degrees by 9 a.m., so recess should not be a problem. The contiguous 48, it's just extremely dry. Big trough of the jet stream has now moved off to the Atlantic, but what that does result in is critical fire weather as well out to the west. As we look at our 7-day forecast, we're going to have temperatures pushing up into the 60s on Wednesday and Thursday, followed by rain on Friday and a cold front. About a 30-degree difference there from where we peak out in the middle of the week to where we'll end up on Sunday. We'll be back and wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News right after this. Our question this morning concerns high school students and unemployment benefits because of the pandemic. Nick Johnson says, I'm a yes and a no. Full-time employees should be able to receive unemployment before part-time. But on the other hand, Nick says, These kids do have a job, unlike some grown adults that don't and are perfectly able to have one. Jess Womack says, don't know why being a high school student should even come into the equation. If you were working and lost your job through no fault of your own, you get unemployment. Janelle Hale says if they meet all the requirements, why not? Levi Cottle, he says yes as well. Worked in payroll for 9 years. If they were working, their employer was paying into unemployment under their Social Security number, just like everyone else. As long as they earn enough wages in that state to qualify for unemployment, they absolutely deserve it. Rob Getz says absolutely as well. When we start trying to determine who needs unemployment insurance benefits and who don't, then I guess we're all of a sudden miraculously aware of every single person's financial needs. Brandy Slager, she says yes too. They should get it. I mean, they worked, paid taxes, therefore they should be just as eligible as the rest. Period. I like the way Brandy just came off the top rope right there and punctuated that. And you know, from Brandy to Rob to everybody else, the KOAM News Now Instapoll kind of echoes that same sentiment. 60% of you say yes, high school students should be eligible for that unemployment assistance. And once again, we did make this pandemic specific. You can log on and vote. Go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Tanya?
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. Fire engulfs the Olivia Apartments in downtown Joplin. Fire appeared mostly contained in the top floor of the building. Joplin Fire Department brought in 2 ladder trucks and got the flames under control a little after midnight. The building is unoccupied, and officials say there were no injuries. This fire comes after the Joplin City Council passed a resolution back in October supporting a restoration plan for the building, which would have developed units for senior housing. The Joplin City Council voted in last night's City Council meeting to deny an ordinance that would change the current trash service provider from Republic Services to Waste Corporation of Missouri. Many citizens noted the amount of negative customer service reviews from neighboring towns who use or have used WCA as their trash provider. Council voted 7-2 to deny the ordinance and is now looking into extending Republic's contract for another year. And Missourians could be asked to do their own contact tracing if their local health departments become too overwhelmed. The state has put out new guidance encouraging local health departments to shift resources to case investigations if they become too overwhelmed with new cases. At that point, they would be able to ask positive cases to contact anyone they've had close contact with and ask them to quarantine. Well, the coronavirus is spreading out of control in much of the U.S., but Dr. Anthony Fauci says an even bigger surge may be coming. Dr. Fauci is warning of increased risk around Christmas and New Year's Day when more people are likely to be traveling and gathering indoors. UK is rolling out a nationwide coronavirus immunization campaign today. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
Great looking Tuesday, as temperatures are going to be up into the high 50s with a whole lot of sunshine overnight. This is a good indicator of where we're headed as we're able to skirt away from the freezing mark, and that's an indicator of temperatures up into the 60s by the middle of the week. And yeah, on that rain come Friday, there's a cold front, going to be a chilly weekend.
Well, today we are giving you a chance to make a difference in the lives of 4-state families, and it's as easy as making a phone call.
All right, so during the KOAM News at noon, 5 and 6, our Toy Box Telethon operator is going to be taking calls and your donations for the KOAM Toy Box. Please join us. Let's put a smile on every 4-state child's face for this holiday season. You can go to KOAMnewsnow.com. You can use the KOAM News app. Just click on Toy Box at the top of the page. I want to thank you all for joining us. We're going to flip on over to Fox 14. Have a great time over there. Have a wonderful, safe Tuesday. We'll do this all again tomorrow morning.
And we're going to do it again today at noon.